Okay. You're starting like this?
Yeah, really.
You're going to start in harmonic,
Here we go.
bouncing resonance.
There we go.
Okay. This is Athena StarSeed and David Alexander English, and
Ta-da!
we're back again, and we're talking about the natural history of life and death, your incredible brand new book.
Right.
And I'm going to order a copy of this because the words are really big, and this is a big concept for a big soul in a little book. But actually, we're talking about your death experience. So I guess tell us a little bit about the book and then lead into the death experience that...
Okay, so we did one of these like on Friday, and he was like, "But I want you to talk about your death experience," and or near death. It's not really a near death experience. Basically, what she meant is that I just since being diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma on September 19th last year, I've just the other day was told that I'm cancer free, and in order to get there, I had to do certain things to that ultimately made it possible for me to survive chemo and radiation, and I feel pretty healthy right now, and it feels really wonderful. I'm still processing what I've been through for the past 9 months, and in the course of that journey, there were several times that I knew that if I didn't go a certain way, that I would be dead. And there was one day specifically where death revealed itself to me, and it revealed itself in a way that it wasn't trying to scare the bejeebers out of me or anything. It was just, like showing me the neighborhood, and there were a couple of other times when I knew that, I could see clear as day that unless I made a change of some kind, that once again, I'd be dead. And this happened, probably about a dozen times through the whole course of it. And so I got to see death, facing death, which I guess is, the essence of the shamanic journey, which is how I've looked at this whole thing as a shamanic journey. And the essence of it is facing death and remaining on the planet to tell the tale, I guess. And it's funny, when I first was diagnosed, and I put out to people what was happening and everything like that. Everybody and their uncle had an opinion about what I should do, and everybody was telling me what to do. And
I'm sure that happens to a lot of people.
This is why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, as soon as they get diagnosed, everybody knows what they're doing.
Everybody's like, drop it. Oh, like this piece of nugget is going to be the defining the thing. They're going to heal you or whatever, And that was a bit annoying, but the voices that I only wanted to hear from were people that were cancer survivors. It's like. As far as I'm concerned, everybody else is just a friggin' opinion.
It's like people that want to tell people that have kids how to raise their kids.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have kids, shut the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? So, while everybody's allowed, to have an opinion, your opinions don't really help the person in the situation. In fact, if you really want to help somebody in the situation, the best thing you can do, the best gem you can hand them is your ability to listen. I mean, really listen without, or just be silent. Your silence really can be very nourishing. Especially there was a period about 2 months ago when I was spending several days fetal, processing out the dead cancer cells and everything. And it's when my my saliva was toxic and everything, and I didn't have a whole lot of energy, and you know, I went 26 days without eating food, and I was basically starving the cancer, and you know, but I was also processing the chemo and the radiation, the cisplatin chemo that I was doing, and in the middle of that, and after that period when I started eating again, I really just needed to be quiet and to listen to what the universe had, you know, brought me into that place for, more than anything else, is just the need to be in respect of the process. And you know, there were some people wanted to engage with me. You know, people would call or something like, and I had to check myself immediately. I can't really. I don't have the energy. You know, there's certain relationships that I realize there's like this reassessment where it's like you, whether or not you have the energy for that right now, and I didn't, and I would have to, you know, just be guarded. And for me, this whole thing was, you know, was throat cancer, so that's the throat chakra, right? So it has, what's the throat chakra about? It's about trusting in the truth of your relationship with the One. It's about the Word made manifest, the Word, right? It's about the breath. And so it has to do with wealth, your relationship with wealth. But for me, one of several, I'll kind of show how this manifested in my life. Manifesting. Throat chakra is all about manifesting. And in order to survive, I had to manifest, because when this started, man, I think I had $19 and change in my bank account. And you know, and I was living out of a Volkswagen bus that could barely make it across the street for street cleaning. And you know, the boardwalk, the money, you know, I set up on the boardwalk in Venice Beach, and the money wasn't there. You know, it's the end of the summer, there's not a whole lot of people around. And so I had to do some manifesting. Obviously, the universe is like, okay, now it's time to manifest more than you've been ever manifested before if you're going to stay on the planet, right? And so another aspect of this, you know, throat chakra energy has to do with being your own advocate. And this is another one of those situations where I would not be sitting here if I hadn't been my own advocate in a big way. So for those of you that don't know, I was doing the radiation, and they had prescribed 6,000 units. And as it turned out, I only ended up doing a third of that. I only did like 2,400 units. And the reason why that is because I had to trust my intuition to say that I needed to suspend the radiation treatments when I did, right? And that didn't go over well with the doctors and everything, because they have this, you know, they're trying. They have a protocol, and that protocol, if they don't follow that protocol, it opens them up to litigation, right? So their motivation is avoiding litigation, and that's more important to them than my specific exposure to radiation, and which is
it's important to you.
that ought to be the priority, and I had to make it the priority. And for that reason, I'm here now without having to have a feeding port.
Oh my God.
You know, that's two medical procedures, basically two surgeries. One is where they put it in, and the other is when they take it out. And you know, if I had gone any further with the radiation, basically they would have burned out all the cells between here and here. they say you get like a sunburn on the inside of your throat.
Oh my
you
God.
know, it would have burned out my salivary glands, so I wouldn't have been able to swallow. And I have a friend that did this. They did only radiation. It's not the same cancer, different kind of cancer, but it's a throat in the same place, but different kind of cancer. And his voice is different. He's got like one of those raspy alcoholic voices now. And so I don't know if that would have happened to me, but luckily we'll never find out.
Yes. Yay!
You know, and the reason is because I had to like not be one of those people that walks in and says, "Okay, doctor, do whatever you can for me." And you know, I was like, yeah, I talked to him. I tried to get him to see my line of reference here, but it was not a situation where he wasn't really happy about it, and I was to the point where I had to allow for him to not be all right with it, because it's you know, at the end of the day,
that's where your compassion comes in for the doctor when he doesn't get to do his protocol.
I appreciate his position. We had a very frank conversation. You know, he you know, threatened to refuse to treat me because he felt like I was being
too cautious.
I was running the therapy. I was like, yeah, I'm running the therapy, you know, because it's my life, you know. and you know, I guess they're not used to people advocating throat chakra, you know, speaking the mind.
Their own health. Exactly.
And I had it, you know, it was not an easy decision to kind of buck against that, you know, that the medical establishment and what they wanted. And luckily, my regular oncologist was very supportive. And, you know, the day we had a consultation, the day after my last, I didn't know it was going to be the last one, but the day after my last radiation treatment, we had a consultation, and she told me, like, it was a wonderful thing, and she's a wonderful person, and you know, props. She said, "I don't think you're going to need to do any more chemo." And I'd already done 2 infusions at that point, 400 milligrams, about approximately 200 each. And they had scheduled 2 more, and she said, "I don't think you need to do any more. I think it would be, you know, unnecessary and counterproductive." And because of the progress that and I was like, "Thank you so much." I gave her a hug, and I said, "I daydreamed about you telling me this," and
that's important.
You know, I visualized it, and then
that's important.
I said, you know, what I would really, really love to do is to stop doing the radiation, and the reason why I wanted to do that was because for the 5 days before this, I was just really checking myself, and I you know, just constantly doing an inventory and trying to figure out what is, you know, what there was something that didn't feel right in the biggest way, and I'm like, what is it, you know? And finally I saw that it was because I couldn't see, you know, I couldn't see things getting better. I could only, things just, when I looked in that direction, the direction that I was headed, it just looked darker and darker and darker by continuing the radiation, you know?
Now wait a minute.
Because we hadn't bought, you know, if we were to continue to do what the radiation oncologist wanted to do, we were still going down into that process, and I couldn't see the up yet, you know, and it didn't feel right. It felt awful. Literally, it felt just awful. Like my stomach didn't feel, you know, just I needed to make a change. And so I did a creative visualization where I saw, okay, so what if I were to suspend the radiation for like 2 weeks? What would that? And I immediately, I felt better. I was like, that would be, because then we'll see where we're at. We'll have a better idea where we're at.
So you paused for 2 weeks and you
right.
went
So
in.
so
that you were
but so
tuning in.
yeah. So here's the thing: is that when I was talking to my regular oncologist, I said what I'd really love to do is suspend the radiation. And I told her why. I told her about this feeling, and this is the difference between her and all the rest. She was like, she listened to what I had to say, and she said, I think you need to trust your intuition on this. And that made all the difference in the world. I mean, I would have still made my decision and communicated with the other oncologists, but just having that support,
the validation, your intuition.
It was just, especially as a professional, because, we're all just making this stuff up, right?
Right.
The protocols that they've developed are not foolproof, and they don't apply to everyone. And I knew that I wasn't the average person going into this because I was 62 years old and I don't look like it. You know what I mean? I look healthy, and I felt healthy. I felt like the healthiest I've ever felt in my life, actually, because of the 4 months leading up to the treatment, where I was, doing every kind of alternative therapy that I could think of. I was doing there's a picture on my GoFundMe of this handful of gel caps and vitamins and everything. It's incredible. It's filled my whole hand that I'd be doing like every day for like 2 months,
Wow.
And it was, everything from what is it, black seed oil to 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. Just you name it, and bioresonance machines, Rife machines, and all this stuff. I did everything, and what that did is it made me the healthiest I could possibly be before I started the treatment. Right. I'd lost 20 pounds, just by cutting out white foods.
White foods.
Yeah, the day that I started the treatments, I cut out white foods. No more dairy, nothing that turns to sugar, right? Except fruit, right?
Okay. Nothing that turns to sugar.
No potatoes, no pasta, no rice, none of that stuff, and hopefully, no sugars. Although, in that first couple of months.
How about honey? Did you do honey?
Yeah, I did. Definitely.
Okay, so honey was a good sugar.
Oh, yeah. And, a blueberry smoothie every morning. Blueberry smoothie.
And that's for the antioxidants?
Oh, man, yeah.
For everything.
Blueberries blueberries are my friend.
Blueberries are your friend.
Blueberries are my friend.
Blueberry heaven.
Oh, my goodness. And that was the first thing when I started eating again.
That you went back to?
I was able to do the frozen blueberries first thing in the morning, and with some fruit juice, some pomegranate juice.
Okay, let's get into your
pomegranate juice is really good for lowering your blood pressure, 1 to 2 ounces a day. What's that?
So, with your fortification and your adventure into it, I want to get into, for everyone, when the 2 time tracks opened and you're looking at the one that it's an end with a dark, and then this one, which gets brighter and brighter and brighter, it reminds me of the Hopi cave painting,
exactly.
where there's 2 choices that you make, and
exactly.
Now, you're kind of unique, because let's give everybody a little bit of background. He knows astrology, he knows sacred geometry, he knows the music of the spheres, he is also a Reiki master. You initiated me in my first Reiki attunement. Right. And so you kind of understand the universe's sound, and we know that you have a block somewhere in the throat chakra where the cancer is had making discord. That's important. Speaking it into reality. Yeah. There's discord, and you have an ability to look at your own Akashic records in this And
As does everybody.
Yes, in a theta state. So you
Yep.
can get into these low vibrational theta delta states.
Yep.
And you then saw 2 simultaneous David Alexander English paths.
Yeah, easily. I mean, I saw that a lot actually when, like I said, there were these moments. Like I'll give you an example. There was this. It was the morning that I was going to go into. I'd scheduled an appointment for a consultation with the oncologist. I called her up and I said, I want to begin treatment. And it was the morning that I was going in to officially begin that process. So we had an appointment at 10 o'clock on I think it was a Tuesday morning. At 4 a.m, I woke up because I couldn't breathe.
Oh my goodness.
And this has never happened to me in my life, because there was there's this thumb size.
Keep going. This is like shrinking. Your head's
Right.
okay.
There was a thumb size
This is shrinking.
tumor in the back of my mouth, right? And it had gotten so big that when I was lying on my back or lying on my side, there wasn't enough air getting around it. And I was snoring. I could hear myself snoring and I couldn't breathe. I woke up and trying not to panic because I'm trying to get a breath. And I saw, as I was trying to, shift around, I was like, should I go running? Should I try to go, get my breath rate going enough to get oxygen or what? But if I just sat up and sat still, I was able to get enough air. And so while I'm sitting there, calming myself, keeping myself calm and everything, I saw, the universe just gave me a glimpse.
We're gonna have to sit down here because it's gonna go down to this weird lower level. I don't know.
I saw basically that if I didn't,
there you go.
follow through on this, taking the treatment, the chemoradiation treatment, because at this point I tried everything to shrink the cancer and it hadn't. I was healthy. I was the healthiest person in the world that was killing himself, and I saw that if I didn't do something to shrink this tumor right then, that I would probably be dead in a month. I could see it clear as day. Month and a half, and that month and a half would be hell and very messy for the people around me to have to deal with, and it would be a really stupid death, because it was unnecessary. So, I was really excited. I was really glad that in 5 hours or 6 hours I had this appointment. And we started the treatment. The next day after that was the first infusion. And you sit there for 6 hours with this needle in your arm, and they've got that needle connected to all these other needles, and there's like 6 bags of different chemicals being forced into your system over 6 hours. And so in the middle of that, there's the actual chemo, which only took about a half an hour to infuse the chemo, but all the other stuff that you need, it's like different things like potassium chloride, like 2 liters of potassium chloride to just get ready to take in the chemo.
So did you have?
And then after you've done the chemo, you've taken that in, you get another 2 liters of potassium chloride. And what's that?
I want to talk directly to. I mean, would you say that it was a vision? Would you say that it was a hallucination? Would you say that it was a meditation? I want to talk about like describing, like a movie, what you were seeing when you saw the two pathways open up and then the one that went black. So, I mean, to give everybody
okay.
the
All right.
death experience.
So there was this day where I had, it was an incredible, very important day. It was a beautiful day, beautiful sunny day, and that morning I had discovered that I had essentially over-alkalized my system to the point where I couldn't eat a blueberry because it was too acidic. And I
Blueberries
realized,
are alkaline, aren't they?
yeah. So
that's you have gone so far
I was
that.
over alkaline.
You're supposed to be 7, right? And there's like
yeah, well,
in the middle,
a little more than
neutral.
A little more than 7.
Okay.
So
too much alkalinity is not good, and too much acidity is not good.
Right.
And if
well,
you're
alkaline,
alkaline,
I was very around 10 or 11
alkaline.
because the stuff that I was drinking, this is called Balance 7. It's 7 alkaline. It's 11 alkalinity. And I didn't read any of that until after. That's just how I figured it out.
Okay.
And but here's the thing. At that point, I'd gone 14 days without eating food. Right? I'd gone 14 days with just on water, and I had tried to eat a blueberry, and it was all this weird stuff happened to my like you have too much acid in your mouth.
Wow.
My tongue hurt and all this stuff, and that's when I realized, 1, I was on chemo. 2, I was on radiation. 3, I was starving the cancer by not eating for 14 days, only water.
Right.
And 4, I had somehow made the mistake of super alkalizing my system. And it was kicking the bejeebers out of the cancer. It had caused its support system to like cascade and collapse. And there was
the alkalinity did that?
All of it.
All of it.
The whole combination.
Okay.
I mean, they say the whole essence of the whole alkalinity protocol is this German scientist discovered that cancer cells can't live in an alkaline environment.
Otto Warburg.
That's right. Otto Warburg.
Say it
right,
again?
in 1931.
1931.
Got the Nobel Prize for
discovering that cancer can be cured with alkalinity.
In theory.
In theory.
And
in your life. And in reality.
I'm just painting the picture of what I was doing for anybody that can gain any sort of benefit from it. And there's other people. I know at least 2 other people that have the same exact thing. They have squamous cell carcinoma in the throat region, and they had it before me, and they're still struggling with various treatments, and I think they may have been. I know one of them was, when he first was diagnosed, he was diagnosed at stage 4. I was diagnosed at stage 2. So, the different stages are much harder to treat. And as it was explained to me, they told me that I had a chance of 100% cure. And it was because I was at stage 2 and they caught it early, right? Relatively speaking. But what was explained to me was that if I didn't take this option right now, and it moves on to stage 3, then we're not talking about a cure anymore. We're talking about maintenance. So that was a clock that was ticking, for me in my mind as well. It's like I want to experiment with all the alternatives that I could possibly do to make that not necessary, to make the chemo radiation not possible, not necessary.
Right.
But I don't want to screw myself out of an opportunity for a cure. So, if at all possible. So I had a window of opportunity to, I had like, as it turned out, I ended up having 4 months from September to January. They wanted to start in January. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
so you had 4 months to prep.
I feel like I need at least another month to see if I can do this myself.
And that's last fall, 2019?
2019 is
okay,
when we started.
So, and then you started, and now it's mid-June. So you were from just this last 5 months? In and out.
The whole thing is 9 months.
Yeah, like having a baby.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 10 days, 10 days short of 9 months.
All right, I have some questions though. The first question is, did you find out how you created the cancer, and did that give you information on how you unwound the cancer?
Okay, I need to sit up here. So what ended up happening is, I went into this with a couple of assumptions that turned out to be erroneous. But they were good assumptions to have, and most people have them, I think. The primary one was that my immune system, if it's strong enough, it could attack the cancer and take it out, right? That sounds like a good idea, a good premise. If you can build up your immune system enough, it should be able to attack what you perceive as a foreign body.
Don't they say that we make cancer all the time and our body cleans it out?
I don't know what they say. I don't usually listen to them.
I mean, I guess
Okay.
that I had heard when I was doing some research on the cancer that you're constantly making those cells, but they get cleaned out by the white blood cells. So you're constantly...
I'll take your word for it.
I don't know.
So, I started, as soon as I got the diagnosis, I started on that premise and started doing everything I could to supercharge my immune system. Okay? And that's how I got to be so healthy. Lost all that weight. I lost 20 pounds and, got really healthy. But I think it was in the beginning of January, like first week of January, a Rainbow Brother friend of mine, he worked on a project to map the genomes of cancers with one of the world's authorities on cancers, and he said you should talk to this guy, and he hooked it up so that this gentleman and I, this doctor and I, had a phone call, a consultation, and this doctor, as it turns out, had treated 10,000 patients with what I have.
Wow.
And he said, I told him what my theory was about, if I figure if I can, build up my immune system strong enough, then I can take out this cancer. And I said that I had been living in a Volkswagen bus that it turned out had black mold, and I had a sinus infection 2 years before that I think compromised my immune system and was a trigger for this whole thing, right? And he said, nope. You know what I mean? And this is where it's really good to have somebody that knows more than you in a situation. He said, nope, that all sounds well and good, but here's the situation. You were exposed to a variant of the HPV, human papillomavirus, of which there are over 100 different variations, and this is one that isn't sexually transmitted. You were exposed to it 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago. And in the interim, the cells of your throat and the DNA in the cells in your throat and the DNA of the virus have fused. So there's no way that this virus is going to be seen as something different by your immune system.
Okay, so it's helping it like it's an organ.
it thinks
it's part of you.
It thinks it's your part of you. So that's not gonna happen.
Wow, did you go back to 25 years and think about where you were?
Oh yeah. I have a pretty good idea of what went down. But
I didn't
anyway,
know
what he
cancer
said
would be
is
connected to a
what
virus.
Oh yeah. Well, here we go. See, that it helps to talk to an expert.
Okay.
And so he said, I understand that you've got your way of doing things and everything, but like I said, I've treated 10,000 people, and there have certainly been, a handful of those people, chose not to do therapy, chose not to do the chemo and radiation, and I respect that, and he said, I'll be rooting for you if that's a choice that you make. And I said, cool. Just out of curiosity, of those ones that chose not to do the radiation and the chemo, how many of them survived? He said, they're all dead. I was like, okay. Thank you very much.
Wow.
So,
wow.
That was a kathunk. That took me 3 days of processing. Not talking to anybody after that. Another thing that he said is that if you're going to do the treatment, there's certainly no advantage in waiting, because the longer you wait, the more it moves towards the third degree, third stage, and it's harder to treat it. So if you decide that you're gonna do it, you better do it as soon as possible. There's no point in waiting. And that was the beginning of January. So that was playing in my mind and in the middle of all this. And because I'd realized that nothing that I had done, all that, all the supplements and the therapies and, everybody and their uncle sending you, you should try, this, that, or the other thing, and I tried this, that, and the other thing. And while I was a healthier person, I was still killing myself. The cancer wasn't getting any smaller. And so...
and today you're cancer-free. And you just got that notice when? Like a couple weeks ago?
No, last Wednesday.
Oh my gosh, not even a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
just last Wednesday. So Friday, I saw you 2 days after the news.
Exactly. I'm still riding the high, baby. This is so one of the things that I learned from this experience was the essence of the shamanic journey, and that I'm this is the cancer was just a vehicle for this initiation. It's this self-initiation that I'm on, and
which is
this
is
book,
this is the birth of that.
Well, it's interesting because, like I said, I started this project 10 years ago, and to be honest, the reason why I finished this book just now was kind of as a distraction from the suffering I was going through. I had the book, it was probably like 95% done before I started the treatment, and then after, the 26 days of not eating and stuff, I got to the point where I really knew I needed to sit up more as opposed to just getting into the fetal, and I knew that if I worked on something, I would be so totally distracted. I just go into the zone, and hours have gone by, and
you're right there. You're right there in the present.
Yeah, and it seemed like a really good project that would be something meaty for me to chew on, so I wouldn't have to be thinking
just
about
laying there all day,
laying,
just going,
feeling
like,
bad, you know.
I'm suffering. I'm suffering.
Let me turn this into something yummy as opposed to something yucky. You know?
Write a book.
So finish writing a book, because
Finish
you know, at this point it was like you were saying the other day how we started with all these different threads. And we're all over the place, that's where the book was. And I was like, how do I needed to
reel it in,
to put it into the book
a
format,
beginning, middle,
you know,
and end, right?
And which required total self-immersion.
Okay, so let me just read one page. I just flip to a page. I like to do that. I like to get a book and flip to a page.
Okay.
And I don't have my glasses on because they're ruining my eyes. Okay, heavenly abodes and the house of many mansions. Can you just read this little part? Sure.
As mentioned, one of the things revealed in the work of the famous Brazilian medium Chico Xavier is his book, in his book Astral City, is that far above the earth, on the edge of space, yet in the etheric and astral dimensional planes, are the tops of spiritual mountains. Think Mount Olympus. One could refer to these as heavenly abodes. Perhaps this is what Jesus was referring to when he said, my Father's house has many mansions. Each one of these mansions, or heavenly abodes, is dedicated to a specific belief system of a percentage of the population of the physical plane of the earth below. So, for example, we learn in the book Astral City that above what is now Brazil, there is a heavenly abode that is given to the belief system that is predominantly Christian. This was not always the case. This same abode only became Christian about 300 to 400 years ago, as Portuguese conquered the indigenous peoples of the region. Before that conquest, that same specific heavenly abode in the etheric and astral plane was given over to the belief system of the indigenous people who populated the land below on the physical plane.
So as above, so below, and it's changing. Now, I want to say, pause for a moment. Please, we're going to put a link if this is a YouTube video. Go watch Astral City by Chico Xavier. Totally. So let's just talk about Chico for just a second.
Okay.
And I'll tell you another thing. So you recommended me to watch the movie.
Yeah.
I watched it and it was like profound. But then a couple months later, a girl comes into the Mystic Journey where I work. I do readings there. And she's crying and she's looking at like books. And I said, what's wrong? And she goes, I have to go back to my country. And I said, oh my God, where are you from? Why are you so sad? She said, I'm from Brazil. And I was like, oh my God, Brazil. Do you know this healer, blah, 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 in Brazil? And she goes, oh, that's nothing. You have to look at Chico Xavier. And I'm like, Chico Xavier? She goes, oh yeah. He was a psychograph. He could channel from the dead to the living in their own handwriting, the living's handwriting, volumes and volumes of information to the children of the person who died and got people off of murder trials. So then I'm looking at his biography and then I realize it's the same movie that you told me to watch. Right. So then I bought it because there's subtitles and
it's in Portuguese.
It's important to like really slow down the movie and look at each sentence because each thought form, like for example, he died in the movie and he was an unconscious suicide. Now he died of a disease, but when they put him in that, you die and you go to the astral city. Yeah,
the movie starts with this movie starts when he wakes up on the other side of the veil after having died from a stomach ailment.
And he thought that was just his disease that he died from. But once you get there, the orderly, the energy being that was doing Reiki on him tells him, no, you were an unconscious suicide because, like you said, when the paths split, you have to take responsibility for every choice that you made that created the disease.
Right.
So please go look at.
Maybe I should talk about that.
I think you should talk about that now. Okay. But please rent Astral City.
The reason why we're doing this interview right now is because I told her a story the other day, and she kept pressing the point.
Blew my mind.
She wanted to know more about it, and so this I started to tell you about it. There was this day. In the morning, I discovered that I was overly alkaline and I had to stop that. And my friend Ryan Mitchell.
We love Ryan. Aura
Shop on Main Street in Santa Monica. He and I are partners in an artist group called Conscious Pilots and have been since we were introduced at your house.
Double Sakara!
We watched my movie together, the Sacred Geometry Paintings movie together.
And your artwork is there too.
Yeah. And he and I have a series of, he's a sacred geometry drawer as well, artist
And a
as well.
walk-in and an alien.
And so he would draw some sacred geometry on like a napkin or something, and then he would take a picture of it and send me the photograph, and I would paint a painting of that. And then so that we did that like 33 times, and that whole series is on the wall when you walk into his store. And Ryan was able to hook me up with spring water, because I was so sensitive to everything that I couldn't drink tap water, I couldn't drink filtered water, because I could taste everything that was in the water. I could taste, the house I was in, the woman had, she had an alkalizer, but it came through copper pipes, and I could taste the copper in the water. It was awful. So I knew that what I needed to drink was spring water, and I'm in LA, and I'm like, where am I going to get spring water? And I remember that Ryan, they sell the spring water at his store, so he hooked me up. He gave me a 5-gallon thing of
love you, Ryan.
alkaline water. I mean, spring water, and a case of spring water, and that got me through, you know. And so I had driven to his to meet him. We talked for a while and everything, and then on the way back to the house with the water, the thing that rolls down your window broke, and I knew that there was a storm coming in, so I had to fix it. I had to get it fixed pretty quick, because there was a storm coming in like 2 days, big rainstorm, and so. Ended up being 2 storms, by the way. So what ended up happening is I get back to the house, and I've got to fix the window, and I don't have a lot of energy. So I had to take the panel off and everything, and it took me a while, energy-wise. And in the course, I would work, and then I'd rest. And there was this moment where I'm sitting there, and I'm just really, really, really wiped, and that's when death revealed itself to me. I saw that this is how people die. This is how it happens. You know, I could see that if I hadn't stopped and exerting myself right then, I could very easily be one of those people, you know, people walking by and they see there's some guy kind of leaning in and out of his car, and he's just sitting there, and he's done. Is he alive? I saw that could be me in a few minutes if I don't take care of myself from this spot, right? And I just sat with that, you know, and eventually I realized that I needed to hire somebody to do this work, because I just couldn't, what it was going to take, I didn't have it, you know. And I went back to the house I was staying at, and I just laid out on this couch. And this is the second time that day death showed itself to me. And I'm sitting there, lying there, and I saw, it just showed me the difference between life and death. Death looks exactly like life, except it's like a little, at the beginning, it's just a little octave shift, right? And if you keep going down that way, that octave shift path, it's going to continue to look exactly like this, you know, exactly like this. Except the longer you stay on it, the darker it gets until you're out. And I could see the two. I could see, you know, this is all light, you know, life is light and everything. And so what I was shown is that how often people mistake death for life. And how often people make choices that are, that's where we get back to the you know, how he was
Xavier,
he was
unconscious suicide.
Andre Luis is the character. And
he was a doctor.
He was a doctor, and they said that he committed suicide because he
unconscious suicide.
He had made choices that had resulted in his demise, right?
And also, they pointed him being a workaholic. Because if you go back, remember his family, his kids didn't really know him, and his wife felt ignored, and so each choice had an effect on his harmonic resonance, which caused his death early. And he died at the dinner table. Remember, he just checked out early.
Yeah. Well, no, he didn't die at the dinner table. He
died on the table.
They took him to the hospital. He had a stomach problem. They took him to the hospital. He died in surgery.
Yeah, in the table.
But the essence of it was that we all have choices that are we choosing life with our every breath. I mean, we're spiritually sovereign, infinite, and immortal beings. We can choose whatever we want to choose because, like I said earlier, we're all just making this up. But, we have a choice of whether or not to be choosing life with our actions, thoughts, emotions, and whatnot, or not. And so that was all revealed to me that day, because I saw that
if you kept working on the window, you would have been dead.
Right.
If you stopped. So this is kind of a present moment awareness, like branching off on a tree. You have to keep choosing every moment. Pro-life.
Yeah.
Pro-light.
Those people that just sort of they get found, sitting in a chair and they've been dead for an hour or two. It's like, oh, nobody noticed. They were just here and now they're gone and everything like that. I saw how that works. I saw that because there was nobody at home when I'm sitting on that couch, and I saw that I could be dead that afternoon, and somebody could just walk in and see, oh, there's David, he died.
When you say that, it reminds me of the energy that your body produces. And you can waste the energy on a negative conversation, on the wrong career your whole life, on a bad relationship. And you had very little juice left. And they were saying, don't use your last little squirt of juice here. Use it to generate yourself. Go in.
Right.
And in a yin kind of a state. Mm-hmm. And allow the universe to nurture you. So you went home and you laid down.
Yeah.
And then you died again. Or you had a death.
I saw it again. Yeah. And so I think it's really important, when I went through what I went through, this, I'm responsible, ultimately, for everything that transpired. As a spiritually sovereign person, no one, you can never relinquish your spiritual responsibility. You can never relinquish your spiritual sovereignty. And, I recognize that I'm where I am today because I'm fulfilling my pre-life agreements.
Boy, are you ever.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I agreed that at 62 years old, I would undergo this ordeal having to do with, the facing of death through the squamous cell cancer, and I agreed that I'd, use this as an initiation, as a self-initiation into the great mystery, and as a shamanic journey, and I recognize that this is just the beginning of that journey. And in the, as the days, months, years go on, I don't know what you're going to see, but it'd be really good if you remembered that what I'm doing is part of that journey, is a product of that journey, and there's something about surviving cancer that gives you a certain amount of street cred with people. Like you can,
I say yes to that.
You can get
yes.
You can get a you can say one thing before you go through that ordeal, and you can say the same thing after you've gone through that ordeal. And people have a tendency to listen more when you've proven something through your experience.
So let me ask you though. Let's go back to the thing when they say it was an unconscious suicide, and you say you come away with I'm 100% responsible for being spiritually sovereign. Every decision I make creates my reality. When you went through several death encounters.
Yeah.
What was the takeaway on? I guess was it a concrete thing? Don't do this, or was it just every subtle change, every breath? You have to just be aware. Where's my pro-life?
Exactly.
So it's not one thing.
No. I have to say that there is something to follow, and that something is within, and we know what harmony is. What feels harmony. We know what it is to. We know our peace, right?
Right.
And we know what isn't peace. And for me, it's hard for me to separate all this out because I'm now, as I was before, I study energy, and I'm tremendously sensitive to energy, and even more so after having gone through all of this. And I'm very mindful of trying to stay in this bubble of harmony. And when I have to go, I go. If I have to be alone, I be alone. And as I follow that guidance, I find that I can appreciate everything more, especially people. Even if it's from a distance, I can feast on the energy of just of a scene, and recognize what that has to do with me. Why is the universe showing me that? Because my life is at this point, as it has been for decades, is about service. It's I'm here to deliver whatever comes through me, and only I can do that. And I wouldn't want to spend my time doing anything else but feeding that process. And so the clearer I can make this channel, the better.
And that comes through your music and your paintings and your poetry and your 29 published books and your movies. It's
all following guidance. It's all following guidance.
I just feel like, I don't know if you guys know who Swedenborg is or Walter Russell. Like they just poured through in all these different mediums, like this genius. And you, since I've known you, have always been accessing Rudolf Steiner, same thing. Nikola Tesla, Caravaggio, Emerson. You've been pouring through this.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting for me that this would have been the next adventure for you.
Yeah. It's funny. I had the title for this before the diagnosis, and I felt like, the natural history of life and death sounds very pretentious from one level. It's like you better be able to deliver that. You know what I mean? You better be able to fill that out, flesh that out.
Where's that coming from?
Yeah, really.
Where do you get that
otherwise it's, it's like, who do you think you are?
And I want to say, interestingly enough, what you write, you create. And if you want to experience something fully, you'll experience it, to then have the wisdom to then transmit the energy, which you're sharing with so many people that might be experiencing cancer, or maybe have just gotten diagnosed with cancer, or maybe they're in their treatment, or they're past their treatment, and they're looking at the wisdom and what you put in this book, which is like amazing. I mean, there you go. I'm going to the heavenly abodes again.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Let me show you something. You see at the end of all the chapters, there's the stuff in italics, right?
Okay.
Those are just, they don't necessarily have anything to do with the chapters. They have everything to do with just, there was a big open space.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what do I want to say? You know? And I would just,
okay, so read this. This is
okay.
At the end of one of the chapters.
And having forever does not seem to matter to most. It is as though there is no time to waste, and indeed, and point of fact, an immortal being will find it impossible to waste time. Stillness benefits the universe, for in order to be truly still within an infinite universe, one must move. It is the nature of the soul to try to push all the boundaries of the creation. This is what we came here for. It is the nature of the creation to push back. This is what it was created for. When the soul ceases to push, but instead finds the stillness within, all will be revealed.
That's where I'm at. I'm right on the precipice of letting go of the push to be in the revelation. And
there needs to be resistance. And the stuff, I keep referencing this major thing that happened. There was an experiment to go to Mars. You know, like they were gonna pretend like they'd gone to Mars. So it was a 2-year project where they created these domes in Arizona. And inside the domes, you know, a group of people went into them and they sealed it up. But inside the domes, there were all these little microclimates. And inside of the microclimates, there were trees, right? So there's like a jungle microclimate here and a
winter one?
Forest one over here,
okay.
And, you know. So a year into the experiment, they discovered that the trees started to fall over. And they were like, why are all the trees falling over? And they realized ultimately that they'd forgotten to program in the wind. So what that says is that the trees who are, you know, genetically designed to experience wind, but they didn't experience any wind, they weren't able to develop
grabbing
fully.
The soil.
Exactly.
Balance training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The chaos of the wind
that makes you stronger.
Made the tree grow roots in all the balanced directions. But
Athletes
without that,
do that. We used to put people on a balance board or a balance ball, and we would have to push to get their core strength for resistance. Also, gymnasts.
Resistance.
Yeah,
exactly.
Gymnasts,
That's my point.
Resistance.
That's my point. Is that, you know, like gargoyles are resistance, right?
For the churches.
Yeah, the whole point is that if you're on that frequency of fear, then you're going to be fearful of the gargoyles. But when you recognize that you're an infinite and immortal being, you have nothing to fear. Then you see the gargoyle for what it is, you know, a figure in stone.
But what's the figure in stone doing? It's creating the resistance?
And you can appreciate the artistry of the gargoyle, right? Of the carving of the stone for what it is. It's just, you know, it's just served the purpose that it serves. It's a beautiful thing.
But they do say that those faces, and also too, like lions in front of like somebody's house, that they are like warning.
Sure.
Sacred geometric energies that warn other energies to stay away.
Yes.
Or like a scarecrow would actually
yeah,
really scarecrows.
They're scarecrows, but you know, if you're an infinite and immortal being that recognizes that you're an infinite and immortal being, you have no fear.
Do you have any fear left after all of this?
Oh, hell yeah. Fear is a tool. Fear is your friend, right? Fear is guidance, right? But we don't leave it there. I'll give an example. Years ago, I was on Maui on the North Shore of Kauai. I'm on Maui on the North Shore of Kauai. I was on the North Shore of Kauai, and there is this cavern famous cavern. It's a lava tube, and it's in the side of the lava tube. There's a cave, and the bottom of this lava tube is full of water. It's called the Blue Room, right? And but the cave is offshore. You have to swim. It's like 25 yards out. You have to swim out from shore and into the cave, and you go back, way back into the cave, and the cavern is 30 feet deep. The water is 30 feet deep, and the cavern itself is north facing, right? So it never gets direct sunlight, but you can the light that comes in the cavern bounces off the bottom, and it lights it up. It illuminates it into this really amazing blue color.
Wow.
And that's why it's called the Blue Room, right? So I had this experience where I went to watch the sunset at the end of the road, and after the sunset, I started walking back up the road, and you walk by the trail that goes up to this cavern, and I was like, oh, let me just go up there and see what it looks like, you know? So I walk up there in the dark, and there was no moon, right? Just starlight. And so I walk up to the entrance to the cave, to the cavern, and then I'm like, I'm there. I might as well go down and get in the water, right? But it's so pitch black as you're looking into the cavern, you can't see your hand in front of you, right? And you could turn around and the stars are really bright and everything, but you turn back around into the cavern and it's like pitch black. You're like, there's nothing there, right?
Right.
And it's very rocky to get down to the water, so I basically had to crab crawl down, the 50 yards down to the water.
Are you by yourself?
Oh yeah. And so then I'm down there by the water, and I'm like, I gotta go in, right? Because you're there. This is your life.
Are you feeling any fear at all right now?
Oh, not at that point. But the water's really cold. Okay. And I'm a wuss when it comes to cold water. So it took a minute to get in, but I was like, I got in, and now I'm in the water. I gotta go into the cave, right? So I swim out to the cave.
Oh my God.
And
you're not worried about sharks or?
No, there's nothing like that in there. It's fresh water.
Okay.
So I go into the cave. Now in this cave, there's nowhere to stand, right? It's 30 feet of water down, but there's places on the wall where you can leap up and hold on with one hand, right?
Oh my God.
To like, instead of treading water, you're just resting by holding on to the wall.
Okay.
Right? But it's 30 feet down of water, And at this point, the light that's lighting it up inside the cave is starlight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, baby. It was so amazing. Okay.
That's amazing.
So here the problem is getting out of there, right? So I could have gone back the way I came, or I could go underneath the wall. And
but how do you know how far it is?
Exactly. Because you could come up underneath the wall.
Do
and
you
hit
have
your
anything
head
to breathe?
No. No.
Oh my God.
So I realized at that moment that, I had an opportunity. And, it's kind of like what had led me to that point. It was like this was the reason I was there, right? Everything else before that was fun and games, but this was the reason I was there, right?
Yeah.
And that I had to go under the wall instead of taking the easy way out.
Now, when you do that kind of stuff, do you like check into your third eye? Am I going to make it under the wall? Or just it's like go under the wall? Like you get this gut instinct, go under the wall. It's your destiny.
Yeah.
So did you see you're going to make it? No, you just had to pull.
Yeah. So I start going. I just, without wasting any more time, I went down. And you're going down into the darkness.
So you can't even see through the water, nothing.
No, it's just dark.
How do you know which way you're swimming? Just that way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I knew the cavern was that way.
Okay, so
So I swim down, and
are you feeling afraid?
well, see, that's the point.
Are
The
you-
fear came as an option.
Before you started the journey, or while you were swimming? Fear is here.
I realized I could be afraid right now. I have that option. I don't think that I was invited to go through this in order to be succumbed by fear, right?
Okay,
And all of this is, it's like happening like this.
right.
And then something said, go up. And, to go up like this, and not straight up, but to go up like this. And I'm pulling for the surface. I'm pulling for the surface.
You don't know how far
and
down you are.
you can't really tell because it's so dark. And just when you're about to feel like it should be there, it isn't there.
Oh my God.
But I just felt like there was a moment in there where I just felt like such peace, and such magnificent, like there's a part of me that is always there. I have that reference, right?
Right.
So I come up, I break the surface and I take a breath.
Okay,
and,
we're coming off the thing. We got to pull you up here.
Okay.
We shrank again.
Okay. I come up, I take a breath, and I, roll over on my back, and I feel so alive, and so blessed. Like that I just went through some sort of initiation
Another
thing.
shamanic initiation.
And then, years later I found out, about these initiations that they did in the
Escalator.
24 schools up the Nile kind of thing, and that it's pretty much the same lesson.
I just recently saw that.
The same lesson
they
is
said
that
to swim past the alligators
you
and
have
go
to
down
swim back.
underneath it,
Yeah,
past the alligators.
right.
Yeah.
It's because your intuition.
Fear.
Your intuition is to go up.
Right, because
As
they say
as opposed to-
if the alligator sees you, they can't see really well. So if you go underneath of them, they won't see you and you can come out. But you have to
Right.
swim underneath of them.
You have to
God.
go deeper into the mystery. The only way out is through.
It's through
The deepest,
my
darkest.
God.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So that's
so-
when I realized that I'd passed this initiation.
So we're coming. We have to wrap this up because I know we're probably at another hour and a half.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Fear can be used as a tool.
Fear is a tool. Fear
And-
is your friend.
And at the same time, you don't want to put that as your main navigational source. However,
You have options.
You have options to choose, and seeing your options on death allowed you to finish this 10-year masterpiece.
Mm.
And how can people get this book? DavidAlexanderEnglish.com?
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon.
Yeah. I don't think I've put it on my website yet because I have to go through this
Okay, so you can
program
at least
that's not
get it on
working,
Amazon.
but you can get it on Amazon.
You can get it on Amazon. I mean, I could talk to you for infinity.
And I have
There's so
an
many different
Amazon.
ways.
Yeah, I have an Amazon author page, author central page as well. So they're all connected. And
So if you're at all interested in this,
thank you so much for reminding me. For a limited time, if you want to read the book, you just send me your email address, and I'll send you a gifted copy of the ebook. And we'll see if it gets crazy. If too many people do it, then I'll probably wrap it up. But because you happen to have heard me say this, you can just send me your email to davidalexanderenglish@yahoo or daenglish@gmail, and I'll send you the ebook version of this for free.
Okay, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you for sharing all this amazing stuff. Death, obviously, is something we're all going to encounter at some point in our walk in this temporary journey we call mortality. And the more we're prepared to face that without only having fear, but to have a lot of other colors to choose from in our palette, to paint our transitions, that we live a fuller, richer life in the present moment with whatever happens, to be able to balance that love and fear, and also to use death as transformation. which is really what the Scorpio energy, death, transformation. That's that energy. And I think planetarily, we're going through that right now. What doesn't work anymore is dying, and we're transforming ourselves, our societies, our cultures, and our planetary consciousness, because we're all connected. And as you evolve, I evolve, and then as anybody reads it, evolving, and we're all evolving. We're peopling evolution.
Yeah.
We're peopling evolution. So the last thing I wanted to say was it all goes back to the sound and frequency that you're producing is giving you this experience. And so recently I listened to your
Journeys Underneath
CD. You can listen to it on
album.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And it does have journey capabilities. If you listen to it and you lay down, the music does take you to different dimensional portals.
Totally.
And I'm sure
the last 3 tracks of that, I think there's 15 tracks on that album. You can get it on any streaming service, Spotify or whatever. If you just put my name in, there's like 3 albums that will come up. And I think that's the most recent one. And the last 3 tracks of that album one is etheric plane, astral plane, and causal plane. And the shortest one is 20 minutes long. And I really feel like when you listen to it, it takes you to those planes of existence. And the whole album is a masterwork. But that last track, Causal Plane,
and today
that will change your life. That will definitely change your life. But the first track is what I was listening to during the PET scan last week, that determined that I was because they put you in the room and you've got to infuse the radiation stuff
to check to see if it's still there or not.
Right.
And you listened to this while you were...
And it takes about an hour to do. And the Journeys Underneath, the first track, the title track, is what I was listening to. And it totally took me deep. Anyone
that's experiencing radiation or chemotherapy, can they just listen on YouTube and put it in their headset?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And
for
then...
Free!
Okay, well, I know we're going to end. Well, in the end of this is the frequency. And you actually are a master of the subtle energies of frequency. So is that recorded in theta? Would you say that that's a theta brainwave? Like when you're listening to it, is it inducing that meditative state?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Certainly, without question. The whole point is, as I said the other day, is trance. And there's conscious trance and unconscious trance, right? And the more conscious you can be while in trance, the more lucidity you generate. And that's, in astral projection, the whole goal is 100% lucidity, to be out of your body with 100% lucidity.
And then are you the conscious dreamer dreaming the dream? So at that point,
Yes.
you're aware that you can move the dream forward in any direction.
Definitely.
And is that when you were also rehearsing her saying that you're cancer free? Because you said you were imagining her saying to you that you're healed.
I that was over several days of just envisioning this happening. And literally, I'd find myself in a daydream, a trance, and of her saying to me, first you're cancer free, but you don't have to do the chemo anymore. It's unnecessary, So, yeah. I want to just pour nothing but yumminess into the world, if I can, moving forward. I feel really blessed to have been able to share these talks with you, especially to kind of mark the moment, because I'm about to go deeper into the mystery. And, when you're in there, you're not necessarily keeping track. And so it's really good to be able to leave a record, so to speak. And because while I may have turned the corner keeps turning.
Right, right. Well, it's
You know?
it's funny because my first Reiki attunement was from you. My first painting on Venice Beach was with you. My first publishing of a book was with you. Now the recording of this thing that we did just before we started filming with you, like these are constantly allowing me to expand just by being in your field. And I think that's what happens with being around someone who's awake and I would say a true genius on all these different fronts. Is there is a sympathetic resonance. You're activating my own key codes to open up into that God consciousness. And God is in everyone, yet why is it dormant?
Genius.
We're all genies in a bottle, and we're getting out of our bottle.
I emphasize this term ingenium. Ingenium. It's the field of genius.
We're sending you the field of genius. We're sending you the field of genius.
Yeah, but the whole idea is that we're, it's our energy potential at any moment, right? Ingenium. We can tune into that. And in order to be in that place of genius, you have to be in a place of compassion. And if you're in a place of compassion, then there's no fear, there's no doubt, there's no anger. That's not even.
That makes so much sense. Like a woman, she picks a 1,000-pound car off of a child. She's not thinking anything other than what she wants. Her intention is to help the child. And so you start.
I almost did that.
You start bending the laws of physics at that point because you become.
Whose laws?
Anybody's.
Yeah, people.
Your own limitations.
Because we're making it up.
Because we're making it up. Returning to the center. We're all genies in a bottle. Okay, I love you.
I love you.
I love you. I love everybody who's listening. This is the book. I'll put a link at the bottom. Please listen to the recordings. They're so amazing. And indwelling God, know thyself. Blessings and light.